dance because I haven't really been going live lately. And there we are. All right. Hello and welcome to another Soul Connection call. I am so delighted to be rejoined by my friend and wonderful professional doing incredible things out in the world, Lauren DeMarco. Welcome, Lauren. And we're just going to be going into a conversation today that is soul led, unironically, on soul burdens and spirit led leadership. So, Lauren, if you would be so kind as to just introduce yourself, orient yourself to the audience, that would be wonderful.
I am a co-creative coach for sensitive CEOs, and I'm honing into what I do, and I'm starting to claim it, and I do soul work for business owners who are naturally intuitive and looking to do some spiritual pivoting, listen to their ancestors, and let's channel together and see what unfolds for the greater good.
I love that. Spiritual pivoting. It is, oh my gosh, the art of the pivot. We talk about that a lot today. So, just in case you don't know me, I'm Safrianna Lughna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I am an author, speaker, and CEO of Living Luna, and I help people come into soul level alignment so that they can live a life of meaning alongside their dreams. So, Lauren, first of all, you recently led a beautiful event in Baltimore that was for exactly the people we're talking to today, our soul leaders, our visionaries, our people that are trying to do healing work in the world. So I'm so curious if you'd be willing to share a little bit about that and maybe some of the lessons that came through, or, what soul level connection was there? What did people kind of realize?
Yeah. So what I set out to do was to bring people together who are already kind of in their spirituality, but really haven't necessarily dove in or claimed it themselves, in particular small business owners. And the purpose was to, I purposely did it about a month before the equinox, for spring, because we start the year with this January pressure of like, this is what I'm going to do. And then a few months go by and we're like, okay, where am I with that vision board that's still sitting on the ground? I know mine's sitting on the ground. I have to hang it. It's getting closer to above my dresser. Okay. But the purpose is like, where are we? And then before all the flowers start blooming, what are we investing in? What intentions did we set for the year? Where are we with them now? And reconnecting, like, is that still true? Because the things we do in hibernation are different than the things we do in planting, watering, growing season. And so I purposely had it at the Rawlings Conservatory. By the way, beautiful gem that if no one has been to
Incredible.
it, amazing. It's free entry, FYI.
It's so good. Like, go there.
A gift, especially during cold weather, and you just walk in and it just smells and sounds wonderful. Like you just want to live there. So I purposely did that because it's gorgeous, and also to bring in the wisdom of nature. There's different houses there that house different species of plants, and so my clients and the people that I work with tend to be sensitive, intuitive, neurodivergent. I'm claiming they're a little magical in the way they function.
Yeah.
A disconnect can happen living within our programming where we don't really live well. And frankly, I don't think most people live that well. I just think that sensitives, it's more obvious that they don't, like, you have more symptoms, basically. We become more symptomatic more quickly.
Right.
But bringing back that, each house of plants is beautiful. And let's honor what nature is teaching us, that if you're a tropical plant, we shouldn't really be living in a desert. If you're in a desert, why are we living in the tropics? Mediterranean has it tends to be temperate, but there's some intensity in the season. So really bringing in the beauty, but also the modeling of how am I reflecting on, how am I treating myself? If I'm not feeling good, what is the environment that I'm in? My relational environment, my organizational environment. What was I hoping for my business, and what resources Do I have? Do I not have? Getting really curious. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like the contextual analogy metaphor that I was bringing to it. In addition to it's just phenomenal and wonderful there. Um, and then ultimately that's the foundation. But my intention was just to create a beautiful, soothing connection space to channel the divine, to help us pivot wherever we want to pivot, or lean in more to what we're already feeling is true, and doing that in community, because when we do that in community, we're raising our, well, it's a number of things. I think we're collectively raising vibration. We really felt it together. And I think say the vulnerability that we were able to establish rather quickly. And it was a small group, which was telling, because actually I loved it. Was wonderful. We could connect personally and business. It was a huge connection opportunity, but also people could just be in their feelings. They could be in their truth. And so I just wanted to create that space for spirit to bring in whatever needed to happen. And whatever, I just let it unfold, right? And actually what happened was more beautiful than I ever could have imagined, right? That's the
Yeah.
beauty of leaving some uncertainty and some space for things in life. So yeah, beautiful things happened, respecting the privacy a little bit of the group.
Right. Of course.
But I would say there were a lot of serendipitous things, there were synchronicities. There was, I would say, I'll speak for myself, there was a theme of heavy grandma energy, especially like maternal grandmother energy, like the ancestors were super present in our circle.
Wow.
Um, and people left just feeling amazing, me included, like my facilitators. We were members and providers, which is what I wanted to set up.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like I'm in this somewhat of a hierarchical position, because I create the structure and the foundation. Like I'm like the mama bird, and we like made the nest, but like
Right.
little eggies, and they all kind of like did their thing and hatch, and they're gonna fly out in the world and come back or not, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Spirit's gonna lead them. But really, we all received. I mean, it was just beautiful. It was absolutely wonderful. So yeah, it was phenomenal. And we are actually planning our next one for June. So I'm still fleshing out some of the details, but I'm letting things come into alignment and partnering with my folks, and we'll see where that takes us. But tentatively June 6th.
That's my birthday. I was literally like, it's going to be my birthday and I'm not going to be able to make it. I got that download right then.
Oh,
And yep, it's my birthday. So,
well, there's something with the birthdays. There's something with the birthday. There's some synchronicity there.
oh my gosh. Yes. And that's the Clarion portal, which is a great time for getting downloads and for speaking truth. So, great timing, honestly. You just said so many things that, like, the thoughts were just going off over here because I work with the seasons a ton. Like seasons is my actual signature framework as an acronym, and it's like it goes into steps of what we do to find our soul level alignment. And so I'm loving seeing more and more people like going, oh, duh, nature is teaching us how to be in the world and how to be authentic and to flow and to grow and to not force ourselves to do things. I love that the timing that you chose for that event and the symbolism, because I'm all about symbolism. I'm a writer, prior English teacher, like symbolism is my lifeblood. And there's so much symbolism that's right here just by looking around in nature. We don't have to go seeking symbolism in stories like, the golden egg or a crown or like human made things. Like there's symbolism in the moon and the sun and the stars and the seasons that are transforming all the time. And so I just love that more people are waking up to that and going, oh, like I can tune into this wisdom. It's so exciting to me because Mother Nature, she's here for us and she's very excited that more and more people are wanting to take care of her finally. So I love that. I love the connection with nature. And the grandmother synchronicities, that is wild. Because now that I'm thinking back to it, I had intended to come out to that event and then I had work happen to be scheduled with my contract job, which is my main job right now. And so I wasn't able to make it, but I was kind of there in spirit, like thinking of you all. And around that same time, I had clients having grandmother, like me getting grandmother presents for clients, and then also my grandmother, who hasn't been around for a while, kind of making a reappearance. So there's something that's happening here with the collective. And I've seen these major timeline shifts, and like I've been saying it, and other people I'm seeing saying it is people who aren't tuning into reality and nature and the natural order of things, not man made hierarchy and us versus them. Like the people that are like, yes, we all have a place, we're all unified, we're one whole, they're going to be okay in what is about to unfold because they're going to have the power of compassion and peace and inner soul guidance, being spirit led. The people that are still embroiled in the us versus them mentality are about to have a very rude awakening. And that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a very rude awakening. They're going to feel very upset, very offended, like, even though the signs and the signals have been here all along. So I love the work that you're doing to support people in gently coming into this and like not having to force the rude awakening because they're trying to ignore or deny. It's super important.
Just to bring in, I mean, I've been feeling called for many years to move in divine feminine energy. What feels to me is moving to try to, I don't know if it's equalize or bring more equitable balance to masculine energy. And so a big theme of the event, and what I do is that it's safe to receive.
Right. Yeah.
Lean into the safe to receive. And I have to credit, I cannot remember this woman's name, and she has a phenomenal podcast, but she does stuff with money, and she's another single parent. So it changed me. But she talked about, maybe watch show notes because I like to credit people. Um, about it's safe to receive love and money, and like that, just like it was months ago, and it just like went around. On the surface it's about money, but what cracked open for me was that it's safe to receive love, right? And what I was attracting into my life was exactly what I had inside of me, and that had to do with, which is lack, right? It's not safe to receive, so I was attracting people who I couldn't establish true depth of intimacy and receiving because I was not feeling safe within that, right? Like our inner
Right.
avoidances, right? But how that expands to when we just let ourselves be and feel and listen and absorb and then act in alignment with what we're picking up on,
Mm.
we can receive and provide so much more than we ever could have dreamed.
Yeah.
And I think there's a drive for certainty, and I see it in professional fields, and we call it ethics and virtues and protecting the public. I'm going to get on a tangent. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but there's just something to like, can we hold the complexity of holding space for some uncertainty and then making aligned decisions in the middle of uncertainty without having
Right.
to like cling to some form of uncertainty to force, because to force is an overexertion of dominance masculine energy, and
Mhm.
masculine energy and within itself is not bad,
Right.
right? I mean, I think there's a lot of
Right.
the jargon around toxic masculinity. These things get overused, which like any other
There's
jargon,
toxic everything. There's toxic
right? But
femininity.
exactly there's imbalances, and I even the word balance. Like, who am I to say what a perfect balance is? Because I think the complexity of balance is way above our pay grades. It's way
Right.
above my spirit grade, to be honest. But I'm holding space for some complexity to come in and trusting in myself in that process. So
Yeah.
bringing that back home to, we were receiving. That was the foundation of what we're doing, and really slow down and quiet and trust and let somebody come in. Let that spirit to come in and listen.
Right. Yeah. Opening to actually receiving what is there.
Yeah, yeah. on too, because I mean, I'm a fast talker. I'm like a ADHD chick, right? I mean, I can just ramble on. And so, like, I really have to slow my energy. It's a lot of work to just, not work, I would say it's a lot of practice, which it's amazing when I just do it, but like, just sit in quiet and just like channel and journal and sit in gratitude and sit in feelings. Like, recent events this week in Baltimore, like I'm sitting, I'm like, this is
I'm
awful, right?
ah
Like sitting in the like, ugh, and what is my place in all of this?
right.
Right? But really, but welcoming that answer in and not deciding what that is without listening first.
Yes, the pause. The pause is so important because, I've had some life circumstances come up recently with the loss of my Facebook page and family stuff and just like life happening, right? Me having to decide, pivot, how am I moving forward in my business and whatnot. And I found myself wanting to rush the decision, right? Like
Yes.
just and that was my old pattern. Like just act, do, scramble, like keep striving, doing something. And then I had the mercy of the pause fully come in and I was like, "No, I'm just going to not respond, not react and just be for a while to allow the messages to come through." And my intuition has been coming online like even more lately and
Yep.
I'm getting like specific cues.
Yep.
I've always had like the ringing in the ear, but like now I'm actually getting directional and I'm like fine tuning it and starting to understand who's calling and like you don't get that without the pause. You don't get that when you're rushing all the time because you ignore those signals. You're ignoring what spirit is trying to communicate with you. Your own spirit, right? Your own spirit, your own soul, and then spirit. The whole, the entity, right? And to be able to slow down and listen, we start to recognize, oh, it's so I don't have to be certain because I know that I will hear the next message I need to hear, or I will receive the next thing I need to receive. The path will unfold. As long as we don't, I mean, there have definitely been days lately. I think we all need the time to completely retreat into the dark. I've just pulled my blankets over my head and been like, I'm just going to sit here for 5 minutes and be in the dark, right? In the feelings. We need that transmutation time. We don't need to bypass it, but we want to keep flowing, keep allowing movement to be there, even as we're pausing so we don't freeze, right? So allow the pause, breathe in the pause, flow in the pause, listen. Listen, there's so much
Listen
there.
and act in accordance. I mean, as I was journaling yesterday, I mean, one of the things that came up was like, I forget. I did a reel on Instagram I have to post, but basically, Spirit was just like telling it like it was. We're like, enjoy your life, Lauren. That's what we want you to do.
Yep.
I said, but my neck hurts. Yes, we told you to do yoga. That's a game. Like it's like, oh, yeah, that's something. But you receive guidance. You just gotta listen and do it, right? Like it's. I think sometimes I think some. At least maybe this is like my inner critic that I sometimes hear this like different vantage point on spiritual people. Like, and I think where there's a lot of fear of like there's a fear of spiritual bypassing. The people who
Right.
who really claim and walk fully in their spirituality, there's some shit talking, and maybe I feel a little like about that, but I hold space for that, like to be accountable, and also for someone like me, I'm already so hyper self accountable. I don't need that in my head, and I think that that's not really meant for me. Um, but I feel like if you're really absorbing into guidance and you're actually following instruction and like you're doing right, like you're not just like glazing over.
Mhm.
I think you're holding space to stay in your lane,
Right.
to be in co-creation with other partners in the change process.
Yeah.
You pass the baton. You're not the hero virtuous save the day, and you're not necessarily um oh, what is it, the old school term? in war when people were drafted? Basically, dodging, right? Like,
I was like,
it's interesting. I mean, like, it almost has this feel of like, but you're dodging accountability. It's like, well,
maybe that's not for me, right?
maybe that's not for me. But maybe,
Being forced to do things. Ooh.
yeah. And so I went on a tangent there. But again, I think you can stay in that softness and really be also really strong in your boundary and in your truth, in what you say and what you don't say. And it doesn't need so much exerting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've been working on the Shadow Alchemy book for the last months months and we are actually, like, as of this moment, the authors have the final manuscript draft in their hands to look through and start reading through. So very exciting. We're launching on the next eclipse. But it has been a journey of really seeing the different ways that people balance, going back to balance, because that's something that I'm all about. I am all about balance, but balance doesn't look like this, right? It looks like this, it looks like this. Every person has their own unique soul led blueprint for what balance looks like for them.
Yeah.
So when society says it looks like this, but really this just is work, right? Let's be real about what society expects. They just expect work and productivity, right? That's very much where our culture has kind of gone. That's not balanced for most of us. We're burnt out, as a society. We're tired. We've got more chronic pain than ever, and that is a call to go back to our nature and find our own balance, right? And that is going to take each person finding that discernment and that voice within themselves and saying, I'm allowed to think, feel, explore, do what's right for me. And in this Shadow Alchemy project, it's I have had so many downloads about what, really flowing in the shadow and light looks like. And when we're really flowing with it, there is no need for that bypassing, because we accept the shadow and embrace it just as much as we do the light, and there's nothing wrong with it. And unless it's unaligned, and then we can clear it or alchemize it or move it. But it's that awareness piece that brings us there to be able to work with it. And so, like, awareness, self accountability, I love. I've met very few overly self accountable people, right? Like, it's something that I'm seeing more and more people getting accountable. But I love that you already have that discernment of, like, I'm already checking in here, like, I'm doing the work, right? And that has given you the capacity to help other people begin to release their soul burdens and get out of their own way for their self leadership.
I think claiming, because as we're talking it through, I keep thinking of there was this little book that Chick-fil-A gave out. My son was reading it the other day, and it was so sweet about snippet, like and I know they have their Christian stuff, but they did some really cute stuff. The whole book was about the snippets when you cut up something up and it didn't fit perfectly into a box, like the box and the triangle that make the house. And so the little perfect size were like, well, we don't know what to do with you. Well, you can hang out with the other snippets. And there were so many different shapes, and they were just like all kind of like hanging out like this. And so one of the snippets decided to come back and say, hey, well, I feel like we could make some other cool shapes on the house. And they started making little roofs and making little, like, cool, little funky little doors and knobs. And like there was like a little, like, just different angles and whatnot. And it was so cute. I love it. And I'm thinking about part of like the shape that I take is and the work that I am really leaning into with myself and others is I really work with people unburden disproportionate accountability, right? Like my folks are often women, gender fluid, gay, right? Like where there's often a life path where disproportionate responsibility was taken or provided. And as I'm kind of unlocking, I think there's some soul connections to other time and space where they had to be afraid of persecution. I mean, as I'm getting into my own spirit talk of like, there's something in me that in my soul experience that I was told that I deserve to hold this weight because of something. I don't know if it's something I did or if it's was my social class, but it just has this very like holding burdens, right? Women and mental illness and trauma. And so the shape that I'm seeing here is let go of that. Like, get that off your neck. Releasing responsibility for how you've been hurt and what you didn't know.
Right.
And what you didn't have access to in former lives and this one. And taking the time now to do what they couldn't. I also came up with one of my various therapy treatments. I did the ketamine thing.
I love that.
It was like there was stuff, right, around like being a nun and like she couldn't leave, but you can.
Yeah. Resonance, because I've had many persecution lifetimes, and we carry those. That's something that I know not everyone believes in past lives, of course, and take or leave what's right for you, but there are things that justify explanation that we are carrying around, right? Whether it is bloodline memory, soul memory, whatever, we carry beliefs that we've never heard in this lifetime sometimes. And to be able to clear that away and say, this is not for me to hold anymore is tremendous. I did work with one of my soul family members. She does like different than Akashic records. It has more to do with like soul to soul connections and like soul level beliefs. And she's like, so I'm getting that she's using pendulums on charts. It was very cool to watch. But she's like, I'm getting that you have this like soul level belief that you need to just keep working and keep doing and keep providing, and you don't think you deserve a rest. And I was like,
it's toil. I mean, the image I've been getting is, I don't know why I keep thinking of that, like, historically, I don't know how accurate this, but almost like the, like, slaves that worked on the pyramids kind of thing. Like, that's the feel. Like,
yeah, just grueling,
toil.
never stopping.
Lots of toil. And you were born into toil and you died. In toil. And then it happened again and it happened again. And then there's been varying levels. Like, I've said to people, like, I feel like I'm pretty damn sure this is the best life I've ever lived.
Which is scary when we think about it in a big way.
Like, I'm like, I've always had that sense. I'm like, I think this is like pretty good. Like, and it's not always been easy. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah. And so when we cleared that belief from my soul, all of a sudden I looked around and realized all of these places I was overgiving, overdoing, overworking. And it really, like, it made a tremendous difference to clear that at a soul level. And so that's where I can't quite discount that there are things going on that we will never potentially understand, but that being open to receive, right, going back to open to receive that spirit-led guidance, that energy, that love, that unconditional love, right, in this moment, working with this practitioner and soul family member, like, her love for me was so important in that healing process. And I think that that's something that I hope more and more healers step into their own unconditional love, because when we have that unconditional love for ourselves, we can really, really pour it out for others, like really start to just overflow with it. And then that, I think, is the most powerful healing force of all.
And I see that to be true on the personal level. How much does your heart and soul crack open when you finally feel safe for the first time in your life emotionally with a partner? Like, at a depth level of like, oh,
yeah,
like, you love me like I love people, and maybe actually a little bit better. Like, there's something to that, and what that opens. I mean, you could talk about heart chakra, but just energetically how that opens when you are willing to receive. Underline, right? When you're open to receive that and then want to just overflow that back, right? But when you're staying in connections with entities, organizations, various types of relationships, habits that give you such a narrow, there's such a narrow return on investment because you're not investing in yourself and you're hoping that that return on investment externally is going to be more than it is, but you have avoided something in yourself. So it's like this. So by having to say no to some things and walk away and be in the openness of what that means, right? I mean, I've done that, personally, professionally. What does it mean to really leap and just to not accept more therapy clients?
Well, I know all about that when I took the leap in August, and I know you've been doing this big transition too. Like the leaps of faith, those soul-led things, we never know where they're going to take us, but they always take us somewhere bigger, deeper, more profound, more soul-aligned. If we, again, this is the key, we keep coming back to opening to receive. As long as we are open to receive, I left my practice completely in August, end of August of 2023, and since then I can't say I've been like super financially stable or like making business happen or anything, but what I have received is clarity, my own soul level alignment coming back, really looking at my relationships that are supportive, right? Seeing where my supports and my network really is. Uh, Getting real about what I actually like to do and offer in the world, right? So, like, the gifts have been abundant. They're not what society views as success, right? Because society kind of sees success as you're making you're making good money, you've got the house, you've got the car, you've got the family, the partner, the this, the that. Like there's kind of a, this is what success looks like. And when you step away from that game, the whole world opens up of possibilities. And now I'm like, oh, you mean I can enjoy eating my simple vegetarian meals that are wholesome and don't cost a lot of money. I can enjoy my yard and nature, and I can write stories. Yay! Like that's where the soul level alignment starts to come through, and that's not the picture that was painted for me and told, my whole life that this is what you have to do and you have to strive for this outcome. This is when you've made it. Well, I made it. I got there and I went, gross. Like this doesn't feel good, right? My body does not feel aligned. My soul doesn't feel aligned. My mental energy's all over the place, right? These are signals that we receive. And if we're open to listen and receive the messages, we can pivot. We can start to move in a new direction. But we have to really be open to listening to what the body, the spirit, the mind is trying to communicate.
And healing, I think that part of the I think it's a combination of really solid therapy, whatever that means. That can look different ways. But for my clients, there's the foundation of, have you done your relational trauma work? I say work, like, have you cracked that open and do you have some awareness of it, basically?
Right.
I mean, I'll probably be in therapy for whatever. I'll be paying somebody to help me forever.
Yeah, I mean, everyone needs a therapist forever. I agree. Like therapy is super valuable.
But like, have you been working with that? Can you name that? Do you have a process for identifying that? Do you have support systems in place for identifying that? Now let's work with the energy of that. And then let's see what happens in the earthly world concrete, right? And I think the message that we often receive is like, okay, you get your house and your marriage and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I did all that. And then what?
And then you go, wait.
That's not, like, I knew something at 16 years old that I let go of, which isn't anybody's fault. It was just part of my journey. And my spirituality is when I started, I mean, from like 12, 13, I just felt like there was something, and also family too, like plant good seeds and stuff. But that spiritual work, I'm working like energetically, and then let's see what you bring in, because I think there's sometimes some confusion that you have to be focusing and zeroing in on the physical, like, okay, the problem solving, I can do all that. Like, I'm a real practical girl. But like, what you can go to an exercise class all day long and give up in 3 months for the rest of your life. But if you are not doing that energetic, relational, unburdening work or expansion, or just putting that, turning that light inward to listen to yourself, you're gonna keep spinning your wheels, right?
Mhm.
And so I think having some awareness of that, and then you can keep expanding that spiritual piece, and then your physical earthly life is going to expand as well. And when I say expand, I don't, like you were saying, like, I don't mean like we're gonna manifest $1 million. And I'm not saying you can't do that. I mean, I think that's possible for a lot of people, but I
Yeah.
don't know if that's it for everyone, right? Like,
Yeah.
is that really like what we're all going for? Not really. I mean, when I look at I mean, I do have a vision board, but this is like my little affirmation board. But when I think about what I'm really looking for, it's ease, it's feeling physically, emotionally safe, it's coming home to a place that feels like a nurturing nest. It's feeling emotionally and physically available to my son. It's being that for in partnership and in people who have open, pure-hearted love for me and me for them. Like,
Right.
that's what I'm looking for. And through that, I know that I will continue to act in soul alignment because my earthly, physical, human needs are being tended to,
Right.
right? So there's this co creative process that is the foundation of setting up a physical life that is better for you. Sometimes it is just having quiet mornings. I think there's things online about like an abundant life is like having a quiet morning. Like today, I just got to spend 15 minutes. My son wanted to color in the morning, and I got up early to make sure I was set up for this. And That was beautiful. And
Yeah.
that's what I feel like life is often about.
Yeah, it's it's kind of funny to me that I've gotten to this point. Like I never saw this, but every morning I drink a mug of cacao from Aura Cacao. And I've actually like had a one-on-one with the owner of the company. He's a really nice guy, like really tries to do sustainable, ethical, practical things. And so I'm like this gung ho or a cacao person now. And every morning I drink my cacao without fail. Like that is my ritual. And it has opened my heart so much. Just like, and I don't, some say it's the cacao, right? Because cacao chocolate, it is a heart opener. It gets things moving. It's got a little touch of caffeine. And I think it's theobromine is the other thing in it, but there's something that it like roots me down into the earth, the warmth, the feeling, like the noticing how the mug feels in my hands and the smell of the cacao and the taste of the local honey, like the simplicity of that has transformed my life tremendously. I think I started in December, and that's like been my ritual since December, and it's like my one little luxury pleasure, right? And I love it. And every morning I do a gratitude practice with my business bestie Meryl, and we send each other a message, and we always start with gratitude. And every morning it's I'm grateful for my cacao, because if I can stay grateful for the little things, the tangible, the physical that also nourishes me on that spiritual level, that it's like I'm home, I'm landing in myself. Like those are the things where we really start to see that perspective of life expand. Is just grounding and rooting into the beautiful little things that, again, when I was a teacher, I got up every morning and I rushed out of the house last possible second to try and give myself a little more sleep, because I had been up until 1 in the morning grading papers and getting lesson plans done. And I'd swing by McDonald's and I'd get an egg and cheese bagel and one of the super sugary coffees, and I'd drive to work and I'd gauntlet the day with my 150 students, and then I would leave and I would go get a thing of french fries and a frosty, and I'd go home and I'd crash, and
Right.
then I'd repeat the
Right.
cycle.
Because you're feeding your body and you're stabilizing your root. Because I mean, to be honest, that's what systems only want you to do. And by the
Yep.
way, I mean, I still eat McDonald's. I have a 4-year-old. We go to Chick. We do the thing. Like,
I love the
I
egg and
may give
cheese
it up
bagels.
one
That's
day,
like
and
my
that's okay. But I'm just more mindful in my relationship. Coming back to
right.
it's about, and then we can talk about the energy of, right. If there's something, the gratitude. I mean, I think there's research that supports why
There
gratitude is
is.
good for mental
Absolutely.
health, blah blah blah. But it's the relationship you're honoring. I mean, we could talk about like an innate in animism and interconnectedness of life and honoring the sentience and the gift in all things, right? If you really are seeing the world and all that's around us as parts of ourselves, which I'm pretty sure there is something, like I watched like a science documentary where like there's like a something that is the same in all things, like your
I mean,
from your
made of the same atoms. We are
yes,
made of the
that's it.
same subatomic particles. So yeah.
Exactly. So like if you can honor your coffee, you can honor yourself.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I hear people say like, "Oh, I can do it for other people, but I can't do it for myself." And I hear that, and what I've noticed is that you think you're honoring people the way to the depth that is. What is it? There's a word. That's probably no word because it's an energetic experience, but like
Right.
to the expansiveness um, that you can. But I'm curious about that, and that's what I invite people to do is like be. I want you to be curious about like, well, I just caregiver like give all this and like, and I have nothing left. And I'm like, yeah, let's lean into that story and like, what happens? Like, what's going on for you, and why do you do that? And you know, what do you want? Is that what you want to do for the rest of your life? And I do. And let's leave some space for what you could do for this world if you weren't doing just this little A to B connection, right? Like,
Right.
do you want to be drawn between dots for the rest of your life, which isn't necessarily a bad thing? Well, someone who's willing shows up in front of me, they don't want to do that for the rest of their life. That's why they're willing to pay, right?
Right.
Like that, those dots are not soul aligned. Okay, like I'm not
Right.
shaming anybody. Like everybody living in their purpose and feeling a lot. Cool. I think we need all of that. Um, but what? How much more could you really be giving love and support authentically in all relationships if you're engaging in equitable energetic transmission,
Mhm.
which starts
Yes.
with your coffee, your journal, and um, sometimes taking a step away from your phone. It sounds like so basic, but like
I
I'm like the dopamine like hoe man, like
I've been turning my phone off, like legitimately, like just powering it down and being like, I'm not looking at you. I'm not getting engaged with you.
it's rough.
But that's, the superficial connections that we've gotten into. And that's why it's so important that we reconnect with ourselves. That's what I'm hearing in all of this is we will apply our limited lens to everyone around us if we are limiting ourselves. So we'll try and pigeonhole them, we'll try and give them our framework and make them live a life that we think is going to be good for quote unquote them, because maybe that's really what we need for ourselves. And yeah, the I can do it for other people but I can't do it for me is just limiting beliefs. It's just stories, because our purpose here, our mission here is to live soul aligned and to lead ourselves in such a way that we show everyone else it's possible for them to lead themselves in their own way, right? Like just cuz this is why I've had a couple conversations about this recently. Like I started to get into the coaching world, and then I was like, "Oh, no. No, no. This is not for me." Because a lot of the coaching world, and I'm not saying 100% of it, but a lot of it's cookie cutter. It's like, "Apply this framework, this will work, this will get you results, go." Nope. So when I say my cacao is like how I root and ground in the morning, I'm not gonna go out and start saying, "All right, Lauren, you better start drinking cacao because it's gonna change your life, and you do it every
Prescribing
morning." Yeah,
because
like
it's
prescribing.
prescriptive.
Right. Yeah, so finding what is your cacao? What is your thing that routes you in the day and gets you connected with yourself? What tunes you into gratitude? What tunes you into, wow, I'm like so happy to be awake and alive today. Like that's what we really want to come back to, is what brings me home to myself. And I'm so happy living my life that I'm not worried about everyone else is doing. I'm just encouraging them to do them, right? To be themselves and find their own thrive. Like that's the thing that becomes more available to us, I think, when we are welcoming our own soul alignment. We're not staying stuck in the limiting stories. We're recognizing them, right? We're working with them. We're not being judgmental about them. We're just like, "Oh, hmm, I I've been thinking that for a long time. Is that true for me?" Right? Like starting to question and inquire within what really is my truth, and then act accordingly. Right? I think that's what you said earlier. Act in accordance to what your soul is actually communicating with you in the pause, in the the void space. And, you know, going back to the, we're all made of the same stuff. We're all made of atoms. We are all made of the same building blocks inside the atoms. And in some spiritual communities, we view that empty space in the atom as void energy, right? And we all, that's where the seat of consciousness is. And it exists in everything. So, you know, I would argue, yes, everything has a consciousness. The more that we can wake that up, like even just charging your water, right? Like waking up the good, the good energy, the good vibration in our water or our food, beneath our feet, in the palms of our hands. Like we can start to play with and feel things on a deeper level too that can pull us forward in a direction that's soul aligned.
Yeah, there's a lot of play. I'm just thinking because I did some play coaching myself last year. Yeah. Um, I'm really embracing, I think, our younger selves, right? I mean, coming from all that, especially all the therapy stuff, internal family systems, and the ego state work, all that kind of stuff. But it's returning to original wisdom when we were closer to it when we were little, and reconnecting with play in our environment is a great access point for that.
Yeah.
Like, can you just be? I think it's in my nature part of. I think there's a lot more to like nature, sentience, and spirit too. I think there's something with that, but being able to be in relationship to things without necessarily needing to change anything, to appreciate, to honor, to be in gratitude, and to see the truth of your life all around you. The devastating beauty that is when you take a walk in the woods and see gigantic trees that have fallen on other trees, and the one tree still stands up partially and the other one's completely down, and something's grown on the dead tree stump that once stood. And there's just next to something gorgeous and still living. I mean, it's everywhere.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. And we are constantly in this cycle of death and rebirth, death and life. It is everywhere. You know, I remember one day walking outside in my yard here, and I was barefoot just walking on the earth, and things were green. Like they're getting green again now, but this was pre-winter. And there were still little blooms out, and I'm like, wow, you know, the beauty of life and how just wonderful. I'm so grateful. And then I walked up to the shed, and there was a big spider eating some kind of other insect, like just going. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, and there's the death, right? It's this balance of nature that is not, you know, it's not 100% even all the time. It doesn't look one way. It's very uncertain, but it's flowing and it's cyclical. And when we can trust that, I think everything else opens up a little bit more too. Like I just trust that I'm here and I'm living, and I will experience many deaths and rebirths in my life, of ego, of belief, of system, of career, of relationship, of whatever. And I will come each time into more and more of myself. Like that has definitely allowed me to release some of the burdens that I've felt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really curious to receive if you have any wisdom about releasing these soul burdens that we carry. Like if someone is watching this and just needs to hear that wisdom from your soul about how to release these burdens or the gifts in releasing the burdens, what does your soul want to say?
They do it through us. And the only way to do and release is to establish enough inner quiet and listening. And that can look different for every person.
Mm,
I think that's a really subjective journey. I mean, that's why you have like psychic mediums who like can actively talk to the dead. Like I don't know if I'm that person. But they'll show you. This is not something that is that's just for certain special people, and it isn't. Um, Everyone has access. There's a willingness, there's a support aspect. Are you supported externally, internally? What is your biology looking like, your physiology? Is your body and your inner world a container where the reception can be good for
Yeah.
receiving? And if it's not, what's needed?
Yeah.
They're
Wow.
reaching through us all the time.
Wow. That it makes me think what you just shared of the wisdom of natural number 4. So in the study of body of 9, each of the natural numbers has a gift that they can teach to others. And it's very inherent to them. And natural number 4 has this gift of going within. They literally sink like a stone down into the darkness of the lower abdomen, and they retrieve their feelings and they process and they see what's coming up for them, and they see the infinite wisdom that exists within, and the ancestral connections, the shamanic connections. They feel all of this, and then they're able to come out in the world and be in intimate relationship with others because they've been able to do that processing. And so I hear a lot of that, like, go within, right? Feel, allow yourself to find those gems within, and then shine them and polish them and bring them out.
And they're reaching. I think for me, the image I keep getting is like spirit is reaching its hand almost through my chest and my heart and going, here. It's not me. Like it's me because I'm caring for me, but it's this.
Right.
And that's what I'm learning I do really well. And I'm answering the call more. I'm claiming that I'm answering the call for once because I've been doing this for years.
Right.
Really, like ever since I was a long time. Right? I mean, I had clients when I was like 22, and they were like, you have a thing," like and like now they're like, "Oh, you're like me." I'm like, right, and then the things that happen are like this. I mean, we're in session for 30 minutes, and we got grandma and grandpa. And like we're doing it, right? I mean, and how much cheaper is it? I mean, seriously, especially in my coaching work. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's like it's sustainable. I need something sustainable energetically and physically
Right.
to be a solo person, and honor myself. And my goal is to get you going and supported, whatever that means.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, let's do this thing.
Yes. Instead of tiptoeing around, right? Like dipping the toe in the water, like what if we plunge into the deep end fully supported with trust and absolute unconditional love? Like the results can be absolutely tremendous when we allow ourselves to do that. And the first step, to quote my mentor Alicia Barman, was to be willing to be willing is the first step.
Yes, I love that. Is she? Is she the one? Hold on. Is she the one
She
in Inner Path, or is this someone else?
Uh, I think her practice is called Ahimsa. She's a breathwork instructor now. She's actually moved away from therapy as well, but she knows Nicole Sparrow, who I
Yes.
know is with you at your
Yes.
event, and like the world, us healers are converging. We're all coming
Yes.
together in a network, in an
Well,
interconnected web.
it's a soul tribe. I mean, I feel it. I feel my soul. There are people who are with me, and I'm not really necessarily shutting too many people out. Honestly, I don't really shut anybody out. I mean, by the time you mess something up with me, it's like I'm like burnt. I'm like
Right.
I'm just trying to like stay afloat here energetically.
Yeah.
But I feel it. I see it. They're just going. They're doing their own thing, and we're finding each other, and things are aligning, and I'm just letting that happen. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
I got a text message last night from my very first therapy supervisor, and she stumbled across my new website, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, like you're just shining your authentic light in the world, and I'm so glad." And that was really great to just have that moment of like, "Oh, we're allowed to update. We're allowed to transform, and the people that are in genuine support will cheer us on in that. And if they're not in genuine support of that, again, going back to something we said earlier, it is really challenging to have boundaries and walk away. And sometimes that's what we need to do for our energy, right? Sometimes a soul burden is somebody that's in our life that we've been stringing along for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, trying to give them enough chances. And maybe it is us walking away that is the releasing of our burden and may let them release a burden. Who knows, right? So just being open to the idea that you're allowed to have your boundaries, you're allowed to listen to the guidance of your soul, you're allowed to pause and not react. You don't have to make decisions right away. The wisdom is in here. You have the answers within you.
Yeah.
If you can get out of your own way with your ego and all that fun stuff.
Well, and ego stuff. I mean, a lot of that's like therapy, and that's where I
Right.
divide a lot of, because I'm learning to see where, because therapy and coaching or spirit energy work, they all can be a partner.
Right.
Um, but if there's a lot of ego centered work and physical, practical things, like that is where, you know, your regular therapy and unpacking kind of the practical and the emotional, um, physical stuff is there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of tools, and when I say, the answers are within you, I do not mean do it in isolation and shut everyone out, right? I mean that you can discern when you're working with a therapist if something that they say is in alignment with you, or a technique that they share is something that you're willing to try or not, right? If you go to a coach and they're like, "Oh, try this," and you try it and it's not for you, you're allowed to say no. If you have a family member or an authority figure who's like, "This is the way that you got to do things," and you're like, gross, no, that's not for me, then you don't have to do it, right? Like, really releasing these outdated beliefs, it's a tremendous soul weight lifted. So I am cheering you on in this. And Lauren is a wonderful resource for these things. If you are a sensitive CEO, if you are a person that just needs that unconditional loving presence that Lauren is, you can absolutely reach out to her. I exist as well. Like, there's so many different practitioners that can support you, and finding the person that you can feel that safety and trust to go deep with is what's ultimately most important. And what I'm most passionate about is finding people the right supports for them to thrive. So,
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much, Lauren, for being on today, coming back and having this conversation. Is there anything else you want to share today?
Nope.
All right,
Well, thanks for
beautiful.
having me and letting me talk and be in our collective presence.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, I'm sure we'll have another conversation at some point soon. Maybe we'll do an event together. Who knows? Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
And we are so glad to support you. Thanks, and bye for now.